Okay, welcome back everybody to the Jiu Jitsu Mindset. My name's Pete Daly. I'm happy to report that Professor Lucas Hubo is not here for the greatest of reasons. He and his lovely wife Paula, their son Gabriel, was born this week and he is attending to his family's life. Now, it's probably too early to be giving Gabriel submission coffee, but I'm guessing that his parents are in need of caffeination. So those guys are likely drinking submission coffee as they attend to their newborn. You can get yours at the jujitsumindset.com. And my guest today is drinking his own coffee. We've been honored with amazing guests in the past. I mean, every guest has brought extraordinary perspectives and knowledge to us. We've just been so lucky. And this week, I mean, the divine has been so good to us to bring us Professor Sanjay Ribeiro. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us. This is a huge honor, as Bernardo would say.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, to be here talking about one of the most important things in life in general, is having the proper mindset to
Mhm.
carry yourself through life, to hardships, to great things. And of course, when you choose your coffee, because if you don't choose your coffee, you're going to be submitted by one. So submission coffee it is.
Excellent. That's the best endorsement. I'm gonna have to clip that out. I'll be sending you royalties for years to come. Well, you're one of the world's most special athletes in our art, and have just an extraordinary career of competition and victory and teaching and business. I mean, one of our great jujitsu heroes out there. And as I prepared to talk to you, I mean, jujitsu seems to be a part of your life from so early on. And so the question I'd like to start with that I feel like could be a difficult question is
hmm
in your imagination, could you imagine where your life would have went had you not gone down this road? Like where would you have headed? Your talents are clearly, if you had applied all that energy and focus elsewhere, you would have been
hmm
a great at whatever else you might have picked. But where else might you have headed?
Peter, imagine my life without jiu-jitsu. It's very difficult, right? I almost have to create a fable in my head,
Yeah,
and like imagine a world. It's like what they say when you have a kid, you don't remember how your life and love was before you had a kid.
right.
And the same thing, I don't even remember what type of emotions I have, even,
Hmm.
become a world champion and all
Yeah,
that before my daughter was born. I was like, what is love? You know what I mean? Baby,
yeah,
don't
yeah.
hurt me. But initially I did went to law school.
Okay.
I did what every kid, the mom just say you gotta finish your high school, go to college. I did go to college for 3 years, and yeah, I probably would have become a lawyer, and I think I would have become an environmental lawyer.
Okay.
Probably
Interesting.
I'll be, invading some lithium mineral, you know,
Yeah,
with guns and things, and try to get people to do proper use of
right.
our earth.
Yeah.
Um, I felt that like when I start to do law, especially in Brazil, that was very complicated. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
all the laws, like it's almost like you have rights but you don't.
Yeah.
And then when you break a law, there are so many openings to the law. You know what I mean? Like all these things, And then I started like, okay, maybe I'll put bad men in jail,
Right.
but it's still the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but then I start to do ambiental law, and that was my favorite class.
Okay.
How the government would sanction the use of land and
Hmm.
things like this. I was very interested on that, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's something that I would do. The probably there will be some sort of ways that I would have gone in my life.
Yeah.
But also I'll probably would do things like, farming some sort of. No, I
Yeah.
love coffee.
Yeah.
I do have plans to one day own a coffee
Okay.
farm and things like that. So I think I would have gone into a lot of entrepreneurship and investments and things like this. If it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
But I think as far as a career, I would have maybe be a poor ambiental lawyer that lives in the jungle, but I think that's where life would get me. I don't see like engineering, even though I was good in math, geometries and things like this, even though my whole jiu-jitsu is based on geometry and
Yes,
physics,
right. Yeah.
I don't think that would be something that I'll be happy to do. I think I'll be very happy to make sure businesses, cities and things like these are in well connection with nature. That's for sure will be
Yeah.
a passion of mine.
Yeah, when I listen to you talk about that, I mean, one of the things that I perceive to be a connection between a road you might have traveled and the road you did travel is that, as you describe environmental law, keeping the earth protected, those types of notions to me speak to an attraction to community, right? Like that,
Mm-hmm.
like being connected to each other, being connected to the earth. In my jujitsu experience and many of the people that I talk to here, it's often the connection between people that is the most important part, even for some of the people who have had the, amazing success and both competitors and in business. Um,
Yeah, I think
they
like
talk to the
yeah,
connection among
yeah.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like when you talk about connection, I think it's the kindness that we lost to one another, right? Even though we
Mhm.
grappling, which could be not kind at all.
Right.
I think in a way, uh let's okay, let's use the word the masculine way. Let's put it the example is like, oh, you know what I mean? It's not okay to touch another man. Hugging
Mm-hmm.
is not acceptable. Women doing certain positions is not acceptable, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We have a beautiful example even in UAE where girls grappling and if I believe there is a passage in one of the books that the guard is a sin, right? Like having
Okay.
someone between your legs.
Right. Right.
So I think like jiu-jitsu really has that idea of using the biggest organ of our world of body, which is our skin, to
Right.
create that connection amongst humans. I
Yeah.
think this is extremely important. I think every jiu-jitsu person that I know, they're very in tune with things that they eat and
Mm-hmm.
how they treat the environment and how they like nature.
Right.
I think it creates that little cyclical idea of be conserve, just conserve the environment around you.
Right.
Even on the mats, you know what I mean? You don't want to be
Sure.
the spazzy person that hurts
Right. Right.
people. Now
Yeah.
you lose the opportunity to be with your friend.
Right.
In our case, if you throw garbage on the wrong place, now you depreciating earth, and now you cannot
Right.
drink water one day.
Yeah.
We look today the whole fight with the water that we drink. So I think that it creates a lot of those connections with things that you eat, things
Mm-hmm.
that you say, especially if you talk about mindset, right? Mindset, like we're speaking a little bit, is one of the most important things you do.
Yeah.
You have a goal, you stick with your goal, you have a plan, you have a mindset of mutual success,
Right.
you have a mindset to keep your environment light, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that everyone can benefit from it. And I think that's what jiu-jitsu creates, because you start to be very concerned about your body,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the somatic therapy that jiu-jitsu is,
Right.
it brings a little bit out of those emotions. You're getting a little bit more in tune with things that you feel because you're under pressure.
Right.
Your ego is put on check. So I
Yeah.
think all those elements really brings that idea of connection within the environment around you.
Yeah.
Even though jiu-jitsu could be a very selfish per se, because you have to concern about how you are, but also is a mindset. You know what I mean? I do my
Right.
own. I take care of myself. I take care of my side, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we all take care of each other's side, and then we all can live in harmony. And I think also jiu-jitsu is harmony.
Yes.
Because if I'm training with you, even for me to apply a technique on you, I have to find harmony the way the technique will connect, and then I
Right.
can eventually, succeed or not in the technique. So I don't know. I could talk about the
No,
philosophy.
no, yeah, I love what you're saying, and because what you're saying is a pretty it's a very sophisticated and mature disposition as a human being, um, to be able to draw all these connections between how we treat each other, how we treat the earth, how we train, in this art. Was this a part of your mentality because you had success as such a young person? Were these ideas present for you early in your life, or did you come to them only as you uh, became a,
No,
more experienced human being?
as you know, I grew up in the Amazon. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Yeah,
climbing trees, being connected, being beat by bugs,
yeah.
riding the horses in my uncle's farm. So I have
Hmm.
always been around. Like I tell people, one of the most, even though it looks weird, one of the most peaceful smells and sensations in the world is waking up in the morning smelling cow shit.
Right.
On
Yeah,
the
yeah.
fields.
Sure.
There's something about it that like, yeah, I'm awake, and then you
Hmm.
go and there's the guy working on a cow, milking the cow. Now you have
Yeah.
a little coffee and you have those conversations with those um, humble people, but they're not humble because they're very wise.
Right.
There's something about it that really carry on,
Hmm.
and one of the decisions, not say anything about lawyer. I really joke about with my lawyers and stuff that like you almost become a professional liar, like or a rule bender. Let's put
Right.
this way,
Right. Right.
right? Sorry if I'm I'm offending anyone here, but um, I just felt like looking at criminal law, all those laws that like they're supposed to be for the good, but there's like all the things that bend it, and then there's holes on it, and then you can like sneak your way through it.
Right.
So one of the things that really got me is that when I started like teaching jujitsu, when I moved to the United States, I started to come in with my brother. Just a little parenthesis here. In 1999, that's when I did my first seminar. I was
Hmm.
a brown belt, went to Europe and things like this.
Right.
So when my brother got married at the time, I told my mom, "Hey, I want to go to America. I want to kind of like learn English. I'm going to be teaching for a little bit." What really got me is that the only thing I had to do at that moment was to be honest.
Interesting.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that's the only thing I had to do. I didn't have to do anything else
Yeah.
to to teach better jiu-jitsu, but to bet at myself.
Right.
How can I be a better in English? How can I, make the methodology better? How can I just be a better person in general? You know what I mean? Because
Right.
your vibe attracts your tribe,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So
Nice.
and
Well
that's I
said.
think what we did. So I made my avatar, my person, the
Right.
best person could be, as an
Hmm.
example, because I found out early that it's difficult to force people to do things. Example and attitude will always carry more than words.
Yes.
Words, like, also I learned that like what you speak and how to speak can resonate with people better or worse,
Right.
you
Right.
know and that's the first thing I did. Sometimes I'll teach people an armor lock, they don't get it, and then the blue belt just have a wording way to say it, or
Yeah.
maybe the way his voice
Right.
is eloquent. Now they get it.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. So I understood that getting myself better as a human in a whole
Hmm.
would number one makes me just a better human after
Right.
all, but also what would attract the people
Yeah.
that would love to learn. I remember just getting people because I was very young,
Hmm.
and a lot of people. I was in Toledo, Ohio, some sort of like very strict conservative, let's say,
Hmm.
state. Like the models, right? Like a martial artist has to be an older man,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hear him like 21 years old,
Yeah.
a kid,
Sure.
with a black belt on. And one time this guy like, hey, but I say, and I'm introducing him to class, da, 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 and everything. He's like, well, but who's the teacher? I'm like, I'm the teacher. He's like, oh, you're the teacher. I was like, who are you? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Sure.
But again, it's not anything that I don't think he was bad. I just think that um, that was his experience
Yeah.
about,
Contrary to his expectation, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
learning from
Yeah.
someone. What am I going to learn from this kid?
Right.
So it really instigate me again to fulfill and to learn and to figure out the human psychic, and
Yeah.
but also, like I said, whatever, I'm a godzillion time world champion. People say, oh, you're gonna have so many students. It will not. Being a champion will not guarantee you anything. Being a good server,
Right.
that can actually get you to the right path,
Yes.
right? And then among with that, of course, learning about business, about customer service, about people.
Yes.
like if you do a survey in your academy, you're gonna see that 50% of the people has stuff to say
Sure.
that they don't appreciate, even though you think you're doing perfect things.
Right, right.
So I start to learn about all those things about you can't be perfect. You can't, your opinion will always hurt someone. The way you dress is always going to hurt someone.
Right, sure.
And like I said, and I think the relation with jiu-jitsu, it's just like there's the only thing I can do, and the only thing I control is how I act upon something. You
Right.
know, I cannot do anything else, and I think that's what really this idea, like I said, the environmental and get better person is the same thing with sports. I think
Sh-
the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Look at the greats. Kobe Bryant,
Hmm.
Michael Jordan. They didn't grab anyone by the wrist. They did
Right.
themselves.
Right, right.
They did themselves. They got their niche and their what they could control.
Right.
They're doing, Cristiano Ronaldo, Kobe
Yeah, yeah.
Bryant, God have him, and I think that's what it is. I think that's where jiu-jitsu really brings that community, the union with oneself
Right.
first,
Yes.
dealing with your emotions, dealing with the way you react to things, and then eventually that will excel into the environment around you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, there's so much in what you just said. I mean, I think, the discipline to become a world champion and the discipline to become a great professor and great teacher and a great business owner. I mean, these are their own disciplines. They're not just because you're a great world champion, that doesn't convey necessarily that you're a great teacher. I mean, those you have to develop individual tracks in my mind of that. And one of the things that as I'm listening to you that I really appreciate is your metaphorical ability, like your ability to draw distinctions and similarities between two different ideas. So I'm curious, like as a teacher, the notion of bringing geometry, physics, principles that are purely intellectual into a physical experience,
Hmm.
like was that just natural for you? And has that helped you speak to a greater number of students? It would seem to me like if you based your teaching on your own physicality, there would only be a narrow group of people you could speak to because, you know,
Hmm.
certain bodies can do certain things. And, however, if you're speaking in geometry and physics terms, well, everybody has their own geometry and their own, the lever
Hmm.
is the lever, right? I mean, it applies
Hmm.
to everybody if you understand the principle. So I'm curious if that was something that was just natural from the start as a teacher or something that you
Hmm.
cultivated over time, like how to develop that language.
Yeah, pressure creates diamonds, diamond
Yeah.
concept. Um, like for example, the idea of connections, just
Hmm.
an example, right? If I
Right.
if I say connections, we can go
A
all
million
over
ways.
again,
Yes.
right? So with jiu-jitsu specifically, I'm a very curious person, right? Like I
Hmm.
think one of the
Clearly.
main things in the world is about learning something every day. I even watched Martha Stewart's little Netflix the other day,
Yeah.
and one of her secrets was like, be curious, learn
Hmm.
something every day. So very early on, I started doing yoga. I start to like, but I'm a very person that you can teach me how, but I'm gonna think why,
Right. Okay.
right? So I think like the learning process, like some people are visual, some people are touching, some people
Hmm.
whatever. There's tons of way of learning,
I agree.
right? And for me, like I've always like, but why does this happen? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like for example, I'm a very how to say the word, like not analytical. Like I mean, maybe analytical is the word, right? Like I'm very curious. Like
Yes.
for example, I remember the first time remembering as a young kid, I pushed the button and the light was on.
Right.
You don't you?
Yeah. How'd that happen?
I was like, how did that go there? Like there's
Right.
no connection. And then I'm like, how does that happen? No, there's a line that goes like this. I'm like, but why? No, because there's waves that get colors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit! Like there's a whole matrix behind the matrix on the matrix.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean? Like what are colors? Oh, is the reflection of that thing on your eye? Okay, but how the eye work? You
Right.
know how the rabbit roll,
Yeah.
the rabbit roll go all the way down. So the same thing with jiu-jitsu. I'm like, well, if Helio Gracie said leverage,
Right.
What is leverage?
Right.
It's a structure,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what's leverage in jiu-jitsu is a structure within movement. I was
Yes.
like, wow, all right. And then you can start to balance those ideas, right? Just start from idea of leverage. I was
Yes.
like, well, but if I structure in jiu-jitsu is too rigid, then I can't adapt because adaptability is another. So do you see where you can
I,
go? I'm
oh,
already
for
going
sure.
too far from even what we're talking about at this point. So and like I said, that's why I was very curious. And I think yoga really helped me because
Yeah.
I always go from an emotional state to a physical state
Okay.
because it's always like what you feel and what you analyze and how you can react,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as far as like creating techniques, for example, the number one thing that I remember, just open up parentheses, when I was talking about the diamond concept,
Right.
um, I call the armadillo first, right?
Right.
Like if you're in a problem, just crawl down and connect your elbows to your body, and then you might have a chance not to be smashed.
Right.
And then I start to talk about knee and elbow connection. I call like mom and daddy, and like I always talk with like funny
Right.
little sentences and things like this. And for me it was very simple: just
Mm-hmm.
connect your knee and elbow. If you connect your knee to your elbow, and then you can do mainly anything in jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
But if you can't connect your knee and elbow, and that could be a problem. Do
Right.
I have to be ultra flexible? No, I just have to be able to connect my knee and my elbow and sustain that
Yes.
for the period of time necessary to accomplish something.
Right.
So I don't have to be super flexible. I just have to be able to touch my knee and my elbow.
Right.
And then start to understand how to make my core a little stronger and then
Mm-hmm.
create movement through that.
Yes.
So that's where I draw a baseline that every human being can do jiu-jitsu,
Right.
right? So for example, maybe if you're passing my guard and I'm blocking, the
Mm-hmm.
diamond comes right on the shoulder, right? What is easier for a normal person? Throw the leg all the way over or just sneak your knee inside?
Right. Right.
Sneak your knee inside. And
Exactly.
that's the simplicity of it.
Right.
And that's why I start to understand that those basic structures, a
Mm-hmm.
square, a triangle,
Yes.
or hexagon, a pentagon, whatever, they're very congruent. So I think that's where I start to develop my teachings. Like, okay, what are the situations that happens the most? For
Yes.
example, when the Graces developed the fighting system, okay, what's number one? You're gonna be on the ground. Like that
Right.
was the
Right.
first truth, right? All right, the guy's gonna punch me. Okay, my hand is here. I
Right.
block the person. Now the person moves away. Foot goes in the hip. I push the person. I stand up. Anyone can do this based on their reality, you
Right.
know. But the thing with jiu-jitsu is that the reality as far as grappling has changed so much, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then there's more flexible people. Look at heavyweights today.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
You know what I mean? If you look at like when I started jiu-jitsu, a ultra heavyweight was a sumo guy.
Right.
Peter Hugo is a heavy, he was an ultra heavyweight, and the guy moves like a feather.
Right.
So I think that's where my curiosity about why things happen
Yes.
really developed within my process. And like I said, a lot of people really, because I think jiu-jitsu become very nerdy. You know what I mean? People really put more thought into things, and the
Mm-hmm.
eloquency of speaking. Back in the day was the teacher was like, just do what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
That's how it works, because maybe they didn't know how it works, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
So for me, like one of the great things in the past few years was connect with Budokan, Budokan with Cameron Shane and Melanie Shane, because Cameron, he will literally explain to you even how your cell
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
your body is reacting within that yoga pose, why the
Right.
movement happens, and the joint and internal rotation, external rotation. So, and that's how I teach us. And I tell the guys, okay, guys, when you're doing this, that's your triceps engaged, that's
Yes.
your core side bending, that's your
Nice.
internal rotation because the energy is cyclical this way. You know what I mean? I can, like I said, I could go
Yeah.
to places nobody goes, but and like I said, some people really love that stuff and they connect to this way of teaching. Some people have to dumb down. Okay, just put the hand on the shoulder and put the knee in the chest.
Yeah. Well, I think knowledge acquisition takes place in phases, right? And so the person that might initially not create, not be interested in the deeper pieces
Mm-hmm.
of the movement of the why behind the what,
Mm-hmm.
over time, I think, is always advantaged by having the opportunity to understand like what's going on here.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
when you talk about adaptability, as soon as you understand the static nature of like, okay, this position works, but then if you don't understand why it works, then all you have is the single static position that you've been taught. And for
yeah,
me, like all of those connections that you're describing speak to an interesting human being, right? Like to be
mm,
interesting human beings, we have to have more than one thing in us. So we have to
mhm.
understand life from more than one perspective. Otherwise, we're just a one note sort of person. So
Well,
this
yeah,
this kind
because
of
yeah,
depth, it really attracts me. Yeah,
especially as a teacher, you need to understand what defines the efficiency of a technique. Sometimes not the technique itself, is
right.
the environment what's being applied,
Yes,
right?
yes.
A longer, a shorter, a thicker, a fatter, a
Hmm.
skinnier, a weaker, you know what I mean? So you have to count all those vulnerabilities,
Right,
all those different things. Why something not asking? Sometimes we're just not that strong.
right,
You know
right.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Maybe we cannot produce the amount of energy to
Yes.
sustain that. It's the same thing. Oh, to build a house, you put a stick like this, a stick like this, and holds the house. Yeah, but if the stick you're using is half
Right.
an inch thick, it's gonna break.
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right. Yeah,
So
it
you
better be a
have to
very, very
adapt.
small house.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or you have to just make it of paper.
Yeah,
So I think that's what people sometimes need to understand, the vulnerability. And I think when teachers understand the whys and the whos and the structures, they're able to adapt, because you're in a room with 60 people,
yeah.
it's it's almost like 400,000 different personalities just
Yeah,
to
right. Yeah,
start.
yeah, yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then body types. Sometimes the person cannot touch his toe or
sure.
cannot touch his knee and the elbow. Sometimes there's, a little bit
Yeah,
of a belly in there. Some
sure.
people are way too flexible now that they're actually fragile. And I think especially, I always, I don't know when I heard this, like I don't teach students, I teach teachers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
believe
yeah.
that every human being has the ability to be a teacher of some sort. You know what I
Right.
mean? So if I just teach for teaching, now I'm creating a person like this.
Hmm.
You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well said. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just the
Hmm.
horse that, okay, I just go forward because I'm set. So, which is great. It's the disciplined mindset. I
Right.
can listen, I can task oriented, and I go,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But then what? You know what I mean? Now
Y-
because you have a direction, but you don't have an end.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think when you open that spectrum, people understand that there's a direction and there's an end to their goal. And that's usually what I try with my students. And I tell them, I say, guys, sometimes what I'm saying for you today will never resonate a year from now. But
Right, right.
there's a seed there.
Yes,
Your subconscious listen to this. You
that's
might not
right.
have no clue what I'm talking about, but one day, oh, I heard that somewhere.
And
You know what I
that
mean?
to me is one of the real like blessings of being of a teacher is that your seeds that they're planted, you have no clue of when they're going to sprout. And when I look at the kids' classes, I think about those dynamics between adults, caring for these kids, and that experience of just concern is in many ways its own instruction. One of my favorite people is a person I've had on the podcast a few times, Professor Jason Hawkins, and he wrote this book called Light on the Gentle Art. And just recently he was going through that progression of talking about you bring people come in, they have bad habits, we bring those bad habits into good habits, we
Hmm.
groove in those good habits so that way then there's no habits, and now you have the
Yeah.
tools to broach the circumstance rather than just the static movement. I mean, in some of your students, you may have students who are in actual combat or law enforcement or whatever, but competition is often, if we're going to say there's a test to what we're learning, competition often is the time when we're putting all of what we've learned under the most stress. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious about two things, and I'll start with just like, what do you see as the role of competition in people's jujitsu journey? Do you think it's for the few, for everybody? Like, what's your,
Again, pressure creates diamonds. You
yeah,
gotta be able to perform under pressure.
right.
of some sort,
I agree.
right? Um, because and then I tell my students it's not about the competitions, is how about is about what you become in the process of it,
Right.
who you become in the process of it, right? So I tell them like from like the easiest thing to say. I say, guys, look at this. If you go to a competition now, what's gonna happen? You're gonna be more thoughtful about what you eat,
Yes.
how you sleep,
Yes.
what you're doing,
Right.
and maybe gonna bring an emotion inside of you that you don't know you have.
Yeah.
It's about exploring,
Right.
exploring the feeling of being in a situation where it's just like life. You know what I mean? It's critical.
Hmm.
It's happening so fast. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like I tell them, like, I don't mind if you're a champion. Like I'm not here competition, of course. It's almost like I'm giving excuse for a loser, right? But that's not the
No, no.
point. I'm like, look, I
Right. Right.
want you, Gary, to whoop some ass.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
The how you're gonna whoop some ass, I don't care. Like I'm
Right.
here, I'm very big into like, hey, understand the energy you put it in. I always go from progressive energy and load versus like all it takes. You know what I mean? And things like this. And I make them understand how to switch that into like, fuck that. Sorry the word.
That's
I'm
all
gonna
right. Yeah.
push
Yeah.
you off this.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And I make them understand because I'm continuous creating this narrative of like, you need to be able to switch on and off.
Yes.
You
Right.
know what I mean? Because if you can't switch it on and off, like they say, you're just a harmless person.
Right. Right. Yes.
I'm on the street with my wife, with my family. I'm chilling. Someone is a threat. Poof, I'm on.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? I gotta be able to go from a peaceful being to a
Right.
murder gorilla.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is, and I think competition does bring a little bit of that uncomfortableness.
For
A little
sure.
bit of that struggle, and a little bit of that focused mindset to like, all right, I have a goal. I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be as best as I can be at that day
Right.
to challenge myself. You know what I
That's right.
mean? So I don't say, "Hey, are you ready to compete?" I say, "Are you ready to challenge yourself?" You know
Yes.
what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah. Well
To
said. Yeah.
to to find out who you really are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people don't go because I think the people that don't compete, maybe they just don't have it, and then there's nothing you can do about it. Um, I've experienced people that in the academy they're great. The jiu-jitsu is amazing. They're
Right.
great, but they go to competition, nothing happens.
Right. Right.
And sometimes some people are just not willing to go to the process to break that
Yeah. Yeah.
emotional barrier of what I mean, what do I have to be great at competition?
Right.
And like I said, some people just would not have it. And that's
Hmm.
just how it is. Like
Right.
there's some things that you cannot change. In jiu-jitsu, if you look at like in Brazil and like probably in your school as well, you see like, man, that guy should compete. And then he goes there, got his ass kicked.
Right.
But that's okay. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Yeah, I mean the process, I think, not being attached to the outcome, I think is useful, not as you say to be because you release yourself from the pressure of competition. The whole point is to, as you say, make whatever diamond you can make under the pressure of that moment, I think has a lot of utility in all the other places in your life. I mean, so I'm 54, my competitions are of no
Mhm.
consequence to anybody, but myself. And when I step off the mat, my life is, presumably identical from when it was before I stepped on the mat.
Yeah, yeah,
However, I experience a great deal of my own internally created pressure and
yeah.
concern of
And
wanting to
that's one of the,
to perform, right?
yeah, and that's one of the things that when I retire from professional tournament,
Right?
all right, like Worlds, ADCC, and things like
Hmm.
this, and people thought I retire from Jiu-Jitsu. I take that as a kind of like as a good thing that people think if I go masters, I'm sandbagging, but they don't know how my body feels.
Right.
What do I have to do within all my businesses to
Yeah,
be
right.
there, right?
That's
It's
right.
not easy.
Hmm.
Um, so it's interesting because when I was going to competition and I'll go like to the bullpen and I'll look at those guys, I'll be like, oh man, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here, which I genuinely didn't want to be there
Hmm.
until I'm like, wow, like I'm not the same.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I need like that goal setting.
Hmm.
Even though I'm a very disciplined person
Right.
in the areas of my life, of course,
Sure.
I'm a disciplined player. So like, well, in what box are you disciplined, right?
Yes.
Because it's
Yes.
very difficult for to be disciplined all along, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
very disciplined in the things I'm good at, terrible in other things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
And
moved
some
my
days you may
house.
be disciplined in box A and not disciplined in box B. It's hard to be.
I moved to my house. I haven't hanging my paintings. I haven't
Yeah. Yeah.
unboxed certain things. Oh yeah, he's so disciplined. Um, but it's not a competition. It's who I am. Again, is that idea of maintaining a mindset of sharpness.
Yes. Yes.
So I think the practice of that environment that I'm very good being disciplined
Right.
carries over to my businesses.
Without a doubt.
I
Yeah.
even told my business partner, hey, be ready. I'm gonna be a little rude. I'm gonna be a little more like dry, straight to the point. You know what I mean? I'm gonna
Right.
be a
Right.
little impatient,
Yeah. Did you slap
because
hands at the beginning of that meeting? Or
uh,
did you bump hands at the beginning of that business meeting?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
this
you
is
know what
gonna
I
be a
mean.
little
And I
bit of
just
a
told her,
fight.
I
Yeah.
said, I might be a little more aggressive in a way.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean? Because that's the nature, and sometimes that's what I feel that I need to be a little bit. I can't be taking no for answer. You know what I mean? Like if
Sure.
some like I think when I'm not in that state of mind, on that mindset, that I'm like, for example, I'm here today, right?
Right.
Well, she just brought me a little mocha, and I'm like, well, okay, there's sugar in it, but it's okay. It's Friday. I'm gonna train. You know what I mean? Now I'm like, oh, okay, should I be doing this? Like, if I
Right.
wasn't competing, I would. Do I care what I put in my stomach first in the month, the day? I don't care.
Right.
But
Right.
maybe that is actually depreciating my ability to be sharp for the whole day.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's what does to me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And like I said, and I in my fighters also, for some reason, they're really kind of like, I feel that my fighters, they miss when I'm not in that state of mind,
Yeah.
because I'm not a person in that state of mind naturally. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm
Yes.
very
Yes.
like, yeah, okay, you're training. Sometimes there's lacking. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, even I can be like a tough teacher, but now that I am actually on the center of like, it's whoop ass time, motherfucker. You better do this. And I think it's even changed them a little bit.
Sure.
Now they're all like worried about what they eat, and they're training more, and it just changed the environment. Like I said, I
With that.
changed myself,
Right.
the cell, and everything around me gets better.
Right.
I told my students, say, guys, I always tell my students, I'm the type of person like, the first blade is family, and I tell guys, say, guys, when you're here,
Hmm.
there is a moral behavior within this academy.
Right.
But maybe someday you're gonna come in here and say, fuck this, you know what I mean? And that's okay. You know what I mean? We're not perfect.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though the diamond might be perfect, it's not perfect, right?
Right. Right.
So, and then same thing applies to me. I say, guys, some days I'm gonna be an asshole. Some days I'm gonna be like the best teacher you're gonna be. Some
Right.
days I'm gonna grab that shinai and I'm gonna hit you on the head. But guess what? It's just like life.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Sometimes life hits you in the head, and that's how it is.
Right. Right.
And I'm very like this. You know what I mean? Very honest about
Hmm.
what do I feel, how do I go, and that makes them feel really good, and that creates the environment. I told them, I said, guys, up to this month, 2 days a week is ass whooping day. So if you're gonna be in my class, be ready, because I'm gonna be brutal with
Those.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And makes them feel very part of it too. You know what
Sure.
I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, and our relationship gets better, and everything gets better, just for the fact that I'm using competition as a tool,
Right.
not to be who I am. It's just like go back to the track of who I really feel I'm the best.
Right, right. Well, and
Which
that
is,
that ability to be clear and have a good communication and to, have that transparency, now people aren't surprised. Like you're able
yeah,
to express like this is what this is going to be like. And there's a reason behind it. It's not arbitrary. It's not
yeah,
whoop ass day because I'm pissed off. It's whoop ass day because of, we're preparing for this and that.
yeah. Usually I say like this as a guy: if I can't come to the academy myself, what am I doing?
Yeah, without a
Am I
doubt.
gonna put a mask?
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
And
right.
and I,
Yeah,
and I think and I think those are the things that, and then we relate to business malpractices,
sure.
and things like this. Like, for example, my school is not for everybody,
Right, right.
right? Like, for when people walk in here, when I sell a membership, you know what I mean? They understand. I say, hey, are you ready to be a black belt? Because you're gonna stick in this place for 10 years.
Right.
Look around, see the people around you, and see if it's a place that you see yourself 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And look at me, this bald guy right here. Are you
Yeah, I like
like
your
in the
haircut, by the
first day? In the like you're still
way.
in the first day they know. Of course, there's a method.
Sure.
Of course a sales process, but I think honesty will always honesty and the ability for the person to understand that they're being heard will always be the best sale pitch
Yes, I
for
agree.
martial arts because it
Yes.
is martial arts.
Right, right,
Martial,
right.
martial, structure, toughness, discipline, shut the
Mm-hmm.
fuck up and do it. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then arts, this is how I feel. This is how I adapt.
Right.
Oh, that's how I do certain things. And that's what people are doing. They took art martial out of martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just arts. I do what
Mm-hmm.
I can. I dress what I want. I behave how I want. I accept me for who I am. I'm like, I accept for who you are, but within this environment, there's a moral structure that needs to be followed.
Yes, right, right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
I totally know
Otherwise, you're
what you
not
mean.
gonna prevail in life. How are you
Well,
gonna
though, yeah,
prevail in
what
life?
you're coming here to receive something. Like it's not just to give yourself, you're to receive the environment, the instruction, the
That's why
change that
that's why it's a dojo. It's not a
yes,
gym.
right.
It's a dojo.
Yes.
Place to
Yeah,
learn the way. What
yes,
way? I don't know. Each one has a little lonely way. I have my
right.
way. If
Right.
that's what you want to learn, welcome to Six Blades.
Yes, yeah, very nice. Well, when we get back to that notion of competition, I recognize that the catalog in your mind of all the fights and competitions that you have is vast. But I'm curious, like, what is maybe it's a championship role, maybe it's
Mm-mm.
something when you were blue. I don't know what comes to mind. But if I'm like, what's the most memorable of those experiences for you? And I know you get that type of question a lot, but what what
Yeah,
what
I do
comes to
have
mind?
something very clear. I
Yeah,
could
that's what I'm
say
curious
my
about.
first this, my first that, but I think for the situation itself, I
Right?
think 2006 Absolute in Brazil was
Hmm.
definitely something for me in many different ways for what led up to being that way, being that
Hmm.
in that day literally for the 4 years before that.
Yeah.
Since I moved to America, I got my injury, thought about quitting jiu-jitsu, got a leg infection, almost lost my
Oh,
leg,
oh my God.
won a world championship, moved back to Brazil. Like there's so many stories leading up to that,
Yes.
that really made that day very special, especially if you look at like if that drama
Hmm.
from 2004 all the way to 2006 would be today, it would be a book.
Right, right.
Because you're talking about Jacare with his arm broken, and I fought Jacare on the semifinal before he fought Roger. Now you
Okay.
have Roger Gracie, the greatest of all times,
Right.
you know, just murdering people and then struggling with Jacare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when Jacare was out of the picture, now they're like, okay, now Roger gonna smash people. Now come myself, I
Right.
Ponce Inagi, you know, makes me beat Roger in those 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um I think that was very special because it comes from the like, the arm broken, and I won worlds that year. And
Right.
then 2005, I won the double gold at the World Cup, which was a
Right.
tournament a week before Worlds, and I beat Jacare, I beat Damien, I beat everybody the same day. I did 8 fights in one day,
Wow.
and then I ended up going to Worlds, and I ended up fighting super heavyweight division, which is I think strategically was a little mistake. I just thought I could beat Roger. That
Hmm.
was the goal. Ended up losing to him the final. That's when my guard got passed last time.
Yeah, right.
And then 2006, that was very different because I was back in the United States and my visa, my green card, and
Right.
my travel authorization didn't come until the day before I was
Wow.
supposed to fly to Brazil.
Okay.
So I was ready to take my name out of the tournament. So I was doing a
Right.
whole training in Ohio.
Okay.
I went to Hawaii for a couple weeks just to get my mind out of the stress.
Right.
And I was about to just open up a beer and I say, fuck it, I'm not going.
Right.
And I got a letter that I could travel to Brazil. So I traveled to Brazil and I did the World Cup again. So the World Cup was a week before Worlds,
Okay.
right? So there was always this tournament, this professional tournament that they run like to kind of like CJI, ADCC type of deal.
Right.
They did a week before. So I fought that week before, a week after for 4 years. I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
win that and then win the other one and stuff like this.
Right.
So I fought that. Uh, this tournament was pretty cool. I got to beat Braulio. I beat
Hmm.
Galvão. I only lost to Pano on the Open Division.
Okay.
And then I went to Worlds the week before. That's when I got to win the double gold for the first time.
Wow.
So I think, like I said, that was very special for all these like,
Yeah,
uh,
this is a context of many
yeah,
years and many things that lead to that moment. Yeah,
yeah. And then
those
speaking
moments.
about the environment, I was like, okay, Jacaré is not there. Jorge just gonna beat up everybody. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I go there with Jacaré in my corner. You know what I mean? That was the
Yeah,
funny
yeah,
part about it.
yeah.
And I got to win. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
also was the last tournament in Brazil. Was the last time the World
Oh,
Championships were
okay.
held in Brazil. So that was very special. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whoa. And also for me, for the first time out of, well, I don't know in 2006 how many people are in the world, but out of 7 billion people in the world, I'm the
That's
number
right.
one.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? I think
Yeah.
that was very special.
Oh, heck, oh my gosh. Well, in a similar manner, I mean, as I ask of your catalog of your own, those personal things, when I ask you of your catalog of observations of seeing how jujitsu has changed people around you, like what's a story that comes immediately to mind where you say, this person, jujitsu came into their lives or they came into jujitsu, however you might, want to position it, and you got a favorite story of how it kind of pivoted them into a different direction,
Man, in that case, man, like I can talk about my own experiences as well. I think that's special. I
right?
can talk about that story, which changed basically my whole perspective in life itself.
Right?
But I think every day, man, every day is a miracle. You know,
Yes,
every
yes.
day, I have this funny story. One time, this guy came into the academy, and his name was Jesse. He is actually a fighter now,
Okay.
believe it or not. You know, comes in, looks down, shoulders in, you know.
Right.
I'm like, what's your name? He's like, just like I was like, all right, is he the spectrum? Now I'm like, try to understand
Sure.
psychology, psychiatry, because in jiu-jitsu, um, like I said, you have autistic kids, you have people PTSD, you
Hmm.
have women that has been, you have a
Sure. Yeah, yeah, a lot.
jiu-jitsu is like life itself, right?
Exactly.
And I was like, hey man. And I hold his hand, look at me. And that guy is like a 20-year-old kid. Like, it's not like a teenager. It's like a
Right,
man.
right. Yeah.
I say, what's your name? He's like, it's Jesse. I say, oh, your name is Jesse, right? He's like, oh, it's Jesse. Cool. And I'm like, all right, I'll get this kid good at jiu-jitsu. Bro, 3 months after that, you cannot get the guy to shut up. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
walk in the academy. What's up, guys? Like Conor
Excellent.
McGregor type of deal.
Yeah.
And this is just
Right.
a simple little thing that jiu-jitsu can do. Just a growing man that can look in the eye. Now he's walking to fire
Yeah,
to
yeah.
save people's life, and he
Yes.
could
Wow.
barely say his name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's very special.
Yes.
In regards to women, I've had experiences to have conversation with women that have been abused, and things like this, and
Sure.
by just a man touching them,
Yes.
um, it's very difficult for them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And watch them growing from not trusting even themselves to be able to be in an environment and be a female leader within men.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
that's like I said, that's why like one story, it's very difficult
Oh
to
no, and
really
yeah, yeah, right. Just like, I
to,
mean,
to, to really say. So I think every day I witness
yeah,
miracles.
nice.
Even in my school here, one of the last things I always clean the mats. People say, "Oh, you should get white belts to clean the mats." So, no, I like clean my mats because every time I clean my mats, I'm praying.
Yes,
I'm
nice.
I'm, I'm doing a soji, which is a ceremony. For me, everything's a ceremony.
Very
Right?
good.
I try to put intention in everything I do.
Yes.
And this guy told me, say, hey, why don't you let white belts do this? I said, because they're not ready. I said, what do you mean they're not ready? They don't
Yeah.
know why
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
cleaning. They're cleaning just because they're cleaning. No, it's just how it is. And then he say, like, what do you do? Um, and I'm like, well, I'm saying thank you for nobody gets hurt, that I can
Right. Yeah.
make money out of it, that I can have a lifestyle, that you guys can come here
Yeah.
and learn. And also, man, you put your face on that thing. You know what I mean? If someone smashes you too hard, you'll probably kiss in those mats. And I want to make sure you get no ringworm out of it.
That's right.
And then, like I said, I'm praying, I'm ready to put that energy out there.
Right.
A couple of months later, and I never let anyone clean my mats.
Okay.
So and then he comes to me like, Sensei, can I talk to you? And I'm like, yeah. I say, hey, I want to say thank you. And now I'm thinking he's like, shit, he's leaving the school, right?
Right.
He's like, hey man, he's like he's like a little chubbier, like a little bigger guy. Like he can really do like he does a lot. We adapt a lot of little things. He's guard, he's deep half guard guy and things like this.
Right.
But anyway, he goes to me and says something like along those lines, hey man, thank you so much. I have found a love in jiu-jitsu and you really has helped me so much. And I'm
Right.
doing things that I thought I couldn't. Da, da, da,
Right.
da, da. I'm like, oh, phew,
Yeah.
okay. I thought he was quitting school. I said, can I ask you something? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to blast those mats and make people feel inspired as well because it has helped me and I want to help people and I want to make sure those mats are clean for the people,
Right.
within this school. Here goes.
Yes, 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 yes.
I gave him the mop. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And like I said, I think those little magical moments, they're super special and really make us really take our things seriously and honest. You know what
Yeah,
I
and
mean?
for me, like there's an expression that I live with. It terrifies me when I say it to myself because it reminds me of how important like moments, each moment of our life is, and that's that expression that how you do anything is how
Is
you'll
how
do
you do
everything, right?
everything. Yeah.
And that I
Oh
love the note.
no, I'm like this only on social media. Bullshit. Fake.
Right, but
Hypocrite.
and I love the notion of everything becoming a ceremony because
Yeah.
as soon as something is imbued with importance, you whatever that thing is, right? I mean, that Zen expression, chop wood, carry water. Like, well, the chopping wood and the carrying water are the things that are keeping the house warm and the food is being able to cook and now
Hmm.
we're able to
Hmm.
the water allows for life. I mean, the cleaning the mats is a perfect metaphor for okay, of all the things going on in this environment, what value do you put on the cleaning of the mats? And
Hmm.
well, this is actually the prayerful time in which
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
protecting each other and keeping each other safe and healthy, giving thanks, all that's just a beautiful notion. Well, listen, thank you for spending so much time with me, and I hope that maybe you'll consider coming back because I think I could talk to you for, 15 or 20 hours, but I want to be
Uh,
respectful of
of
your
course, of
schedule.
course. No
And
worries.
this was fantastic. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you guys, for the work you'll be doing. Like I said, jiu-jitsu is a tool to people get better. You know what I mean? Hopefully, we can create more good teachers.
Yes.
Creates just more people that understand differences.
Yeah.
We're living a very polarized world
Hmm.
that you either here or you're here. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it takes away what we want in life, which is balance.
Yes.
And I think it's important for us to understand the differences, difference between pushing and pull. That's what's
Yeah.
going to make you successful in the technique or not.
Right.
And I think that the reason, the reasoning that we use in jiu-jitsu, I think we should use in our life as well. And it's all, like I said, it all comes with mindset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you come to the academy with the mindset of scarcity,
Right.
and then
Right.
of course that's what you're going to attract. That's what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I think they have the mindset of mutual success, mutual development, just mutual everything. But it starts
Yes.
with oneself. You know what I mean? That's why we need to understand. It starts with the way that I carry myself and how can I get myself better.
Right.
The idea of like when people, oh, but I'm so good to others. I'm like, but are you being good to yourself?
That's right. That's right.
Sometimes being good to yourself is being good to others. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? And
Yeah.
that's what people needed sometimes to understand. You know what I mean? And thank you for doing the work that you're doing. It's amazing to be able to wake up on my Friday. It's been a
It's
tough
so good to
week.
meet you. Yeah. All
It's
right.
been a
Good.
tough week. Like I'm super sore, but after this, I have a little meeting and then just straight to the mats and be
Excellent.
ready for Europeans in January.
It's going to be amazing. Well, I'll get out to Austin at some point in time, and maybe we'll get a chance to. I'll come out on. I'll find a day where it's the whoop ass day and come and get my.
All right, come in. It's
It's
gonna be delightful.
going to be delightful. All right, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.